Hey everybody, good evening and welcome to another edition of Taking Stock Live. I'm Kalila Reynolds and it's my pleasure to be here with you on this Labor Day evening, Labor night. I'd love to know where you are joining us from tonight. Let me know in the comments what part of the country, what part of the world, so I can shout you out right after this break. So before we get started, of course, as usual, I'm gonna tell you what's coming up in tonight's show, followed by what's hot in business.
Political leaders received a whopping 200% salary increase, sparking outrage on social media. Was the increase justified? Political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang and chartered accountant Dennis Chung will join us to discuss. And the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. Dolphin Cove Annual results are out. How did they perform? And in the US, the S&P 500 jumped nearly 1%, its highest close since August last year. We'll discuss. But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has decided to forego his massive salary increase that would see his pay skyrocket to $28.6 million in April 2024. Following public outcry, Holness's salary will remain at his current remuneration of roughly $9 million, and he will not therefore receive any retroactive payments. However, Cabinet Minister's pay will move from approximately $6 million in 2021 to $22 million by April 2024. Prime Minister Holness recently announced that salary adjustments for political leaders will generate more interest in politics. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness on Monday announced a reshuffling of his cabinet. The major changes include Floyd Green being named as Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, taking on the latter portfolio from Audley Shaw. Pernell Charles Jr. is the new Minister of Labour and Social Security, and the Ministry of Transport, also previously led by Audley Shaw, has been incorporated into Darrell Vaz's Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport portfolio. The Office of Utilities Regulation says telephone numbers under Jamaica's 658 area code have been distributed to service providers. The OUR, which is responsible for generating local phone numbers, says it has run out of codes to assign under the 876 area code. The agency said 10-digit 658 telephone numbers will be available to the public once service providers have exhausted numbers with the 876 area code. The OUR also said that the last 7 digits of the new telephone numbers may match the last 7 digits of numbers previously assigned by operators under the 876 area code. The Bank of Jamaica (BOJ) last week announced it is keeping its policy interest rate at 7%. The last time the BOJ increased interest rates was in November. The decision comes as Jamaica's inflation rate for April fell to 5.8% and is now within the BOJ's target range of 4 to 6%. The central bank warned, however, that it expects the inflation rate to rise again. The BOJ said it will continue to closely monitor the global and domestic economic environment for potential risks to Jamaica's inflation rate. Investment firm Roots Financial is growing its presence in the food and restaurant industry with its latest acquisition. Roots last week announced it acquired 100% of popular restaurant chain Mother's Enterprises. According to Roots, the acquisition is part of its plan to create a Caribbean network of integrated businesses. Roots Financial is already in the food industry through its investment in Quick Cart. The United States is inching closer to a shutdown as members of Congress remain divided on raising the debt ceiling. The U.S. debt ceiling is a spending limit set by Congress that determines how much money the government can borrow. The current limit is set at $31.4 trillion US. If the House of Representatives cannot agree on a spending plan and a new debt ceiling by June 1, it could result in the U.S. defaulting on its debt. That would mean the government could not borrow any more money or pay all of its bills. It would also threaten to wreak havoc on the global economy, affecting prices and mortgage rates in other countries. What's Hot was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Am I on? Almost. Oh, my camera's off. Oops. All right, that was my bad. I had my camera off, but here we are again. Welcome back, everybody. Boy, if only you know what I went through to get to you tonight. That's a story for another time. Before we get into this segment, let me shout out, our early people who are here with us every single week. Glad to see you. Kish is or was waiting for this one. He says greetings from London. We also have Dark Side of Jamaica, who says bless. Orville says only politicians know money, it seems. Roger says good night, money makers, hailing from Kingston and St. Andrew. I've been waiting to see this one. I wonder where my 300% increase is in my pay too. Boy, I should give myself a raise. Speaking of, Shardine says hi from St. Thomas. Anthony says Portmore in the building. Christine is checking in from Kingston 19. Darkside is checking in from Savlamar all the way in Westmoreland. I was in your ends very recently, Darkside. And there was one that I wanted to get to as well. Let me see if I can find it back. Forever holding a grudge. No, forever holding Dodge. Not lie, why Kalila so late with this story? So the story broke last week, Tuesday. Taking stock is on a Tuesday. It was kind of late for us to change plans at the very, very last minute. And, the whole big firestorm kind of developed on Wednesday after, everybody had a chance to digest what is going on here and all the reactions. So that's why we're just getting to it. But you see how many other people in the comments are saying they were waiting on this episode because they still want us to weigh in. By the way, I did give my opinion on this topic last night in the Money Mission community exclusively. So some people have been saying, Kalila, how come you haven't commented on this yet? Well, y'all are just not part of the exclusive community. If you want to know what I think, then you need to join me inside the Money Mission community. And, you get exclusive access to some things because there's certain things that kind of touchy, So I might decide upon occasion to give my opinion over there rather than to, the whole world where it's just accessible on YouTube and via Google search. Anyway, so let's get into tonight's show. As you guys have heard, a whopping 200% salary increase has been granted to parliamentarians. So that's triple their original pay. And this has led to public outcry on social media, on the streets, basically everywhere you go. People are talking about this topic. So was this increase the right move? I'm going to talk about it. We talk business on the show. We talk numbers on the show. But I also want to look a little bit at the politics of it because we're about a year and a half away from the next general election. And my two guests this evening, I think, can shed some light on both of these elements, both of these aspects. So I have with us political affairs commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang and chartered accountant Dennis Chung. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Kalila.
How you doing,
I'm
Kevin?
good.
Hi, Dennis. What's up?
Yeah, man.
Great to see you guys. Okay, let me take this comment off. Producer, handle that, please. All right, cool. Yes, so first of all, let me hear both of your perspectives on this. Kevin, starting with you. Was this a good move or not?
The theory was good, but the execution was terrible. Lee Kuan Yew said that the quality of a government depends on the quality of the people in the government. He was a strong proponent of paying people more to get better quality people. His argument was that the private sector competes with the public sector for talent, and if the payment is way below the public sector, way below the private sector, you won't get good talent in government. However, the government blew it in terms of execution. As I said, the theory is logical, but first of all, the 400% increase, and is it when you think about these things, I supported this publicly. When you start thinking and you talk to people, why 200%? Why not start with like even 100% and go up from there? Any kind of business you're in, or any time things go up 200%, it shocks people, And we know Jamaicans have a love-hate relationship with politicians. We elect them every 5 years. We elect them to govern us freely, but when they get in there, we cost them, even though we have chosen them. But apart from the 200%, the communication was atrocious. We have Andrew Holness now coming with all these job descriptions and KPIs and ethics stuff after this was announced. This salary should have been announced with the increases. We're going to increase, but here are the things we're going to do. Also, one of the biggest blunders was there's no a pie chart showing the public sector increases, the percentage for each category, from health, for education, for security, breakdown. And then you show the political sector, which is like 1.7% or something of the entire pie. So the public didn't get the perspective it should have. Also, there's no single document showing all the increases for the prominent people in that area. You have the prime minister, yes, for the political sphere, but the chief doctors,
Justice.
principals, they have gotten
The justices in the judiciary.
exactly chief justice. They've all gotten big increases also. But there's no document you can go to refer all these things together. The logical thing is do a document with that, right? And then do a TikTok video off of that. Because many people don't read, but the TikTok
All
video.
right, so you're basically saying that this is largely a communication issue, but you have no problem with the increases themselves.
No, I 100% would have been good. As I say, when you talk to people, the anger is really bad out there, right? And it's true. Why 200% off the bat? Why not 100% now? And then say in 3 years, if we see the improvement, another 50%, right?
Okay, well, before we continue, let me bring Dennis in. Before we continue, let me bring Dennis in because I want to hear his initial thoughts as well. So Kevin says a communications issue, but the increases, no problem. What do you say?
Oh, I agree 100% with Kevin.
Wow.
I have no issue with even the 200%. But the execution, I mean, if you want a lesson in not how to do something in terms of communication, this is it. I just think that it was handled very poorly. The fact of the matter is that I've always maintained that we need to pay our politicians more. It is very difficult to hold people who are running large organizations, which what ministers and MPs are doing, to account if they don't feel comfortable and you don't make them comfortable, right? So for me, the percentage increase, even the salary levels they get, it is not an issue. But if I'm going to pay you $20 million a year, I want $30 million worth of value from that, right? Because we're paying you 5 million before and we're getting 2 million of value. And we're saying to you now, okay, fine, we will up it and we will give you the money that you want. But make sure you deliver. I don't want to hear about disorder on the roads. I want communities to be quiet, right? I want the environment to be crime free. I want illegal vending gone. I want a better way of life, better public transportation system. So there's no argument that the politicians have now. We're paying you. So deliver what you need to deliver. That is where the conversation needs to go. Because the truth is that if you pay a man $100 million a year and he delivers $150 million worth of value, he's cheaper than the man that you pay $5 million a year and he delivers $2 million worth of value. So I think that the percentage increases and all of this we're focusing on is really a distraction from what we should be demanding from them. But I agree with Kevin.
I'm very surprised, Dennis, to hear both you and Kevin saying you guys are cool with the 200% increase.
No, Khalila.
Hold on. In light of what we see as the comparables, not just to other countries, but also to GDP. So let me share this with you. I saw this it was actually on Hugh Graham's page, and he's a PMP. I don't know what the original source of this document was, but this is comparing not only prime ministers or leaders' salaries in these 5 countries, but also to GDP per capita. GDP per capita, loosely speaking, is the average income of each person in the country. So in the Bahamas, average person earns about $27,000. The PM earns $86,000. This is in US dollars. So the PM earns about 3 times what the average person earns. In Trinidad, the average person earns $16,000. The PM earns $86,000. So the PM earns 5 times what the average person earns. In the UK, the average person earns $46,000. The PM, I'm surprised the PM of the UK salary is so low, $200,000. So So the PM in the UK is earning about 4 times the average person. In the USA, the average income is about 70,000. The president, I assume they meant here, earns about 400,000, so about 5 times. And then in Jamaica, even before the increases, you have the average person earning just 5,000, and then the PM earning 60,000, which is 11 times what the average person earns. And then after the increases, that moves to 32 times what the average person earns. So how is this justifiable, relatively speaking, based on the size of our economy? Kevin, I'll actually, Dennis, you first, because you're the numbers person.
Yeah, well, I mean, that points to the real issue that we have. The real issue that we have in this country is productivity. And, when we talk about the public sector workers, I've always maintained that public sector workers and the general population is going to get poorer and poorer because we have not dealt with what the 2013 IMF agreement said we need to deal with as critical for improving the welfare of people, which is labor market reform. We take a short-sighted approach to it. So we will always have that disparity because we are impoverishing the persons at the lower end of the scale more and more in real terms because we fail to adopt the fiscal policies that is going to drive earnings and productivity, right? I mean, and we can't use that comparison to say that we should not pay the politicians what we expect them to deliver. Now, the way I read that table, Kalila, is that, okay, I'm going to pay you that. No, I want the average person to make more than the person in the Bahamas. That is how I read it. I am saying to them, okay, now that I'm paying you that, this is a benchmark for me. This is a part of the accountability. We want people to be making what people in the Bahamas are making. And that's how I would look at it.
And then some. So that means our average income would have to, how much people in the Bahamas making again? Let me look back at the number.
27,000 average.
27, GDP. And we're at 5, which means that we now have to quintuple what the average person in Jamaica needs.
Yeah. So the deal is, Kalila, if you are going to say you're going to pay yourself more right, then deliver. And deliver to me an average earnings that is up there.
Kevin?
Well, what Dennis says makes sense. I mean, it's logical. But, the Prime Minister is the CEO of Jamaica. There's no question that the most important job in the country is the Prime Minister's. As Lee Kuan Yew said, the Prime Minister and the ministers, they will determine the level of your GDP. If they make good decisions, your GDP goes up. Bad decisions, they go down. So if you want to get a prime minister very low, with low pay, keep him there and get people who are going to come in out of service. If a CEO in the private sector in Jamaica makes 200,000 minimum of a big company, right? You are going to say, I'm going to pay 60,000 for a job that's way more important. Where's the logic in that? So, but as I said, I come back to the point that the theory, I think most people will agree that our politicians have been underpaid. I don't know if you have seen the Bobby Pickersgill video going around. When he said that, he had a very interesting quote. He said, if you and I leave Parliament and we don't have anything to show for it, we can't put 2 and 2 together. People are going to say we're fool. We can't put 2 and 2 together, them say we're thief. And he said, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. When you give people power and a little pay, they are going to use that power to increase their income to a comfortable level. So you have to give them a comfortable level where there's no excuse to steal. That is just logic. But I come back to the point that the 200% was shocking to people. I think
naturally it's going to be shocking. And not just that, but it's also retroactive. So I heard Oral Tracy, sports commentator. He has a video that's going around on TikTok as well, making a very interesting point about the retroactive portion, saying that if your justification for this increase is that you want to attract better and brighter and smarter politicians who can do the job and get things done, then why are you paying the current crop that new salary now? Because if you're saying that is your justification, then you're saying the current crop is not the crop of politicians that you want, who are the best caliber to run the country. So why are you paying them this now and even retroactively when, you know, ideally it should come into effect maybe 2025 when the next election is due?
But it clearly shows that this thing wasn't thought through properly. All I can assume, I was talking to some friends and they were joking and saying, the politicians hear about the big increase and they get frightened. They couldn't think of anything else. We want the money. You know, if I can give myself a big raise, I'm going to. That's human nature. But they didn't think through the repercussions. The Prime Minister, first of all, they must have realized how to come across and how 200% would come across. 100%, I think people have quarreled, you know, but they would have accepted that, yes, these guys are underpaid, they need an increase. It's years they haven't gotten anything. But the 200% has shocked people. And personally, the government, if I was in the government, the Prime Minister, I would call the cabinet together, gentlemen, clearly we have damaged ourselves here. We have done great harm to our public image, and elections are coming up next year, which we want to win back. I tell you what, we're going to have to roll back, only give ourselves 100%. Then we can say in 3 years we give ourselves 50% if we perform. That's what I would do. I think right now the government, the JLP, has been hurt by this. The Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, they need to do something to calm the seas, to lower the outrage. And I think the most logical thing to do is follow the theory. You know, the theory is right. You need an increase, but not so much right now. That's a logical thing to do, in my view.
So we have a comment. We have several comments, by the way, but I want to take this particular one from Forever Holding Dodge. Who says they should have put incentives in place instead and force them to earn their increase in pay. So this is the same argument that's been put for the public sector, where there's always been this thing said, well, we need to have performance-based pay for public sector workers. Dennis, what about performance-based pay for politicians?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think, however, that there's a certain base that they need. I personally don't have a problem with the level that they're at, and you can give them an incentive on top of that. Because, as I said, if they can get us to 27,000 GDP per capita, no one is going to argue with it. The problem is the execution, the communication. I think that something like this should have been signaled in a conversation to the public weeks ago in Parliament. We should have started this conversation, because we can't, as Kevin said, we can't hold people fully accountable who has power, right, when we're paying them that. I mean, I go back to not even the politicians, the police. They're poorly paid.
Exactly.
I've always said we need to pay them more, right? Mm-hmm. So that conversation is I agree with the comments about retroactive. You know, I would say we should not pay the retroactive, because that is based on the performance in the past, which has not been good, because people have been suffering from living conditions, right? The environment we live in and everything. So I wouldn't say, you know, we shouldn't pay the current crop. What we should do is we should give them the money, and we should set the standard now and say, listen, okay, fine. You said that the problem is money. This is what I want. I want, in 3 years' time, all Jamaicans to get to a GDP per capita of at least $15,000.
Is that realistic?
Yeah, that is. That's
triple GDP in 3 years? That's realistic.
I don't know that's it. I was setting a target. You know, we need to set targets like that to move people up.
Well, remember when I did 5 and 4 and we never come nowhere close?
Yeah. So that is why we should be retroactive.
The target would be higher than the Latin American average.
Yeah.
If you can beat that, you get something. If you're below, you're deduct from you. But a reasonable target. But that's reasonable. You know, let's remember one thing, you know, the politicians have limited power. And I hear people talking about they're not accountable. That's garbage. They're some of the most accountable people in the country, because every 5 years, if people don't like them, you boot them out. There are a lot of other people in other spheres who they're there forever. They, for example, I hear these so-called civil society groups knocking the politicians. They're not accountable, this and that. Some of them are been in the person in charge for 10, 15 years, and nobody knows what they do, can't get rid of them. And then they say politicians are not accountable. They are quite accountable. But they reality is that give them realistic targets. And this is the thing I don't understand. Why did Andrew Holness come with these things about the last night after the increase had been given? Where's the logic? Would you come with them before the increase is given? So as I said, I don't know what the thinking was, but it is very, very poorly thought through. It shows some kind of disconnect with the government in terms of how they view the public and their view of the public. They couldn't.
I think they didn't know because they feel like they have enough time before the next election for this to blow over. I don't know that this one is going to blow over. So
I heard one analysis. I heard one interesting analysis of someone. They said Andrew thinking in his head. And I said, what did he mean? He said he has a vision of Jamaica 10 years down the road, right? And he's thinking that vision is here, like Singapore-like. So he's measuring things of that in his head, that if the pay and all that, we're going to get there. But you have to deal with what is Jamaica now? Where are we now? You know? And
I say achieve the results first and then get the bonus. You can't get the bonus before you achieve the things.
Well, exactly.
So both of you are saying, okay, give them the bonus, give them this huge increase in pay, but then attach that to some things that they need to accomplish. But I think
I said, the pay was you could have done both
first and then triple your pay. And then you can say, look at our track record. Look what we did for Jamaica, and then triple your pay.
Well, you could, what I said, bring it up to a reasonable standard, 100%, and then you have the bonus for the 3 years if you move it ahead. That would have been logical, a two-step approach. Bring up, because we know they're underpaid, bring it up, and then say, okay, guys, if you perform, here's more down the road. Yeah, so I agree.
Here's the next point as well. So Forever Holding is making some really good points tonight. So he or she says CEOs get fired if they don't perform and they only make 200K USD if it's a big company with profits. So that's a good point. We don't have any mechanism to recall our politicians if they are underperforming.
We vote them every 5 years. And by the way, the 200K, let me clarify for your listeners, 200K for a CEO in Jamaica is low for a big company. That is, you have to give us some figures about how much the people made. You know more about this than me, but I know for a fact.
Yeah.
200K for a CEO for a big company, that is low.
200,000 for a CEO for a large company is low. I mean,
how much a big CEO make in Jamaica? More or less. You're an accountant, so you've seen some numbers.
I think they would make maybe about $300,000-$400,000 on average. You know, when you look at it, per year, and a lot of that has to do with performance, right? But 5 years, I think I agree with Kevin. It's a reasonable time. Of course, you can have some performance indicators before, right? But what we need to do is ensure they set them, set the targets and let us see what you're coming with, right? And this is where the conversation needs to go now, right? The saving grace for the government is that the signals coming from the opposition has been like flashing lights because they've given a lot of mixed signals in terms of their response to this, not very consistent. And that, I think, is a saving grace. But the truth is that the execution.
You mean the saving grace for the current administration?
Yes.
The opposition has been so flip-floppy on the issue.
Yeah, all over the place. But the execution was very poor. But I think my view is that you pay them, right, and then you say to them, "We pay you now, right? Give us good neighborhoods to live in. Give us a crime-free environment. Give us good order on the roads, so that we can live peacefully. We can live comfortably. That is what we want, and increase our GDP per capita. So I'm not arguing about the money that they're getting now, but I'm saying let us set up some methods by which we're going to track this, right, and ensure that we get the delivery, and we find some way. I agree. There's accountability even within the 5 years, because the media in this country, we can use public opinion to get certain things done. The problem is that many Jamaicans don't do it, right? But when we are ready to use public opinion, and I think this is going to push people more and more to do it now, we can do that and get some accountability.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. We have a lot of comments. I want to read some of our comments before we go to the next segment. But thank you guys for joining us and sharing your perspective.
Thanks for having us.
All right, let's move to the comments because y'all are on fire tonight, and I completely understand why. Starting with, okay, let me scroll back. So, our producer, please unstar the ones that we've already read so that I can just find the ones that we haven't read easily. Where we go? Where do I start? Where do I start? All right. So how to cripple economy. All right. So God says how to cripple the economy. 1, 3x current politicians' income. 2, barely increase teachers' pay. 3, education quality in nation reduces dramatically. 4, next cycle, even less qualified politicians may result. And then Forever Holding says 100%. Even that is too much. James wants to know how much public sector persons get. I think that is a big point of contention as it relates to the politicians' pay increases, because you're giving public sector workers what, 10% increase, 15% increase. It varies depending on what category of worker you are. They did this whole public sector wage restructuring, and I guarantee you that they did not get the 200% increase. And so when teachers are seeing their small increase in comparison to the 200%, it seems outrageous. Christopher says increases are deserved. Jamaica is not an ordinary country to run. It's complicated. We need to see the return on investment soon, and very soon. So I'm going to tell you something, Christopher. When I first heard this story last week, Tuesday, I heard politicians giving themselves a raise. I was like, okay, cool. They deserve a raise. Being a politician is one of the hardest jobs in this country, if not the hardest. It is a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour job. It requires you being up all hours. You have to do all kind of miscellaneous things. And being a minister on top of that it's just so much work. And the volume of work, we agree, is a lot. And that's one of the reasons that many people shy away from politics, particularly women who have children, because it just takes you out of the home and out of your comfort for such extended periods of time that a lot of people just don't want to do it. They don't see it being worth it for them to be doing that. So I said, okay, cool, give them an increase. And then I heard 200%. I'm like, But then I also thought, okay, thinking along the lines of what Kevin and Dennis were just saying, well, maybe it's justified. Maybe we do need to give a very high salary in order to attract the right people, especially because I know of the limitations of women in politics in particular, and being able to attract women to those types of jobs. But then what brought me around was the document I shared earlier, looking at GDP versus how much the leaders of these 5 particular countries make. And it looked at both developing, including Bahamas, Trinidad, and developed countries, UK and the United States, versus Jamaica. And seeing Jamaica's numbers be just so completely out of whack with what those other countries are paying their leaders, it was absolutely jarring for me to see. All right, some more comments, because so many of you, and I want to get to as many as possible. Let me see. James Browning says they never deliver. T. Clive Reynolds says, logical, these salaries are comparable to that of U.S. senators and representatives. Are you crazy? Our economy is minuscule compared to the U.S. That's the point I was just making. Kish says he has no issue with the 200% increase. All right, Kish, cool. Joey says, how can you raise the pay for a year you already worked, then claim retroactive pay? They do that all the time, not just for politicians, but in the public sector. It happens a lot, actually. Roger Roberts says, my question is this: you pay them this 200% increase, and then still nothing gets done. What was the purpose of even increasing their pay? Not everyone is motivated by money. Some are other factors, etc. That's a good point. That's why I was saying that we don't have any recall mechanism. You have to wait 5 years for the next election for you to have any say in whether this person gets to continue in his or her job. And 5 years is a long time. In the private sector, you get a 3 months probationary period, and they decide whether they want to keep you or not. 6 months to a year. If you are not performing, sorry, you're out. But our politicians get 5 years to prove it. Melissa says it's nothing but absolute arrogance. Arch says seems like nothing the government does is properly thought through. $5 Jerkman says the politicians in Jamaica do not respect Jamaican people. J.A. Patriot says people should stop voting because of party. Sheldon says, in my opinion, the reason about attracting talent is poor. Firstly, how often do we change PM and MPs? These vacancies are not open to the general public. On that last point, they actually are, because you can run for your constituency, and you do not have to run on a political party's ticket. You can run as an independent candidate. So how likely is it that you're going to get elected? As an independent candidate especially? But the point is the vacancy is open. So you can apply for the job. Doesn't mean that you're going to get the job. Black Sheep wants to know when we're going to protest. Didn't they protest last week? There was a protest on Friday, I think, at Emancipation Park. T. Clive says, get us there before you raise. It's called job performance space. That's what we're talking about just now. And Ezra says, if we reach the 2030 vision, then they can get their raise. Adrian says, it's interesting how the PM tried to justify the increase by saying the raises to attract quality minds into politics, but yet he couldn't increase the salary of civil servants to attract, I guess, similarly qualified people. All right, well, let's take a quick break here. We're going to look at your market recap, and then we'll come back with the analysts.
This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, Insurance Made Easy.
Hey, moneymakers, join the KRM fam with our official merch. Get it now at KalilaReynolds.com. Let's get this money.
The JC Combined Index lost over 3,000 points last week. 125 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, May 19, 2023. 44 made gains, 71 lost value, and 10 stayed the same. 118 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $560 million. Trans-Jamaican Highway was the week's most traded stock. It took up 23% of market volume, with 28 million shares trading. The stock opened Monday at $1.93. Wigton Wind Farm traded at the second highest. The stock gained 3 cents to open this week at 79 cents. And JFP rounded out last week's most traded, with 8 million shares changing hands. The stock lost 13 cents to open Monday at $1.69. Now let's see who had the biggest gains for the week. Margaritaville Turks was the week's biggest gainer. The stock was up almost 28% to open Monday at $18.99. Epley Caribbean Property Fund SCC was the second biggest gainer. It went up 21% to start the new week at $43.70. And T-Tech was up almost 18% to open the week at $2.51. On the losing side now, Cygnus Real Estate Finance USD was last week's biggest loser, down 23%. The stock opened Monday at 9 cents US. MPC Caribbean Clean Energy fell 17% to open the new week at $71. And KLE Group was also down 17%, closing the week at $1.66. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index lost 1.5% last week. Grace Kennedy was the most traded stock. The stock opened this week at $4.01 TT. Guardian Media was the market's biggest gainer, up 9% to open this week at $2.51 TT. And on the losing side, Trinidad Cement fell almost 18% to open Monday at $2.79 TT. Over in the US, the Dow Jones was mostly stable last week, while the S&P 500 gained 1.5% and the Nasdaq gained 3%. At the pumps, gas prices jumped $3.06 last week, while diesel prices gained 25 cents. In foreign exchange, it took an average $155.27 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's 42 cents less than a week before. Meanwhile, it took an average $115.20 Jamaican to purchase $1 Canadian. One British pound cost on average $194.34 Jamaican. And you could buy €1 for $169.90 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices fell 2% over the past 5 days, with the cryptocurrency trading at $26,760 US on Monday. And Ethereum was down 0.5%, trading at $1,812 US on Monday. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analyst, is brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart, and Profit Jumpstarter. Disclaimer. This is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
All right, welcome back. And before we move into our next segment, let me invite you to take tonight's poll question. You guys can probably guess what the poll is actually going to be about. How do you feel about Jamaican politicians giving themselves a 200% salary increase? You can take this poll on Twitter or on our YouTube channel in the community section. It might, if you use mobile, it might come across your feed. A, they deserve it. They work hard. B, they don't do enough work as is. C, I'm for it, but 200% is too much. D, where's the money coming from? Or E, other. Just leave a comment if you have something else other than those 4 options that you would like to share with us based on this conversation. How do you feel about Jamaican politicians giving themselves a 200% salary increase? Before we get into the next segment as well, let me take a few more comments because I tell you the chat is lit tonight. Roger says, if most Jamaicans were earning at least 2.4 million a year, most Jamaicans could make their lives a little more manageable, but the reality is that most Jamaicans are only getting 1.2 million a year. So that's tough. James says, peg their increase on public sector increase. If teacher, police, nurse, fireman get X, then that them must get. I believe you mean X% increase. Then that's what the politicians should get as well. Mirak says, we would have preferred a 50% increase and the rest used to raise teachers, police, and nurse salaries. And then Orville, echoing what one option D in our poll question was saying, on top of that, they say there was no money. So where did it come from suddenly? All right, hot topic in Jamaica this week about the politicians' pay increases. But let's look at some market info, some market news. Let me introduce first our analyst panel. I'm joined by investment research and sovereign risk analyst at JMMB, Leovani Dillon, and of course, CEO of Profit Jumpstarter, Keisha Bailey. Welcome back, Leo. Welcome, Keisha.
Hi.
Good night.
Boy, so hot topics this week in Jamaica. I wonder how or if all of this could potentially affect the market. But Leo, we have some specific things to talk about this evening. Keisha, you're looking at U.S. markets. Leo, you're looking at Dolphin Cove here in Jamaica. Their results are out, so give us the highlights.
Yeah, so Dolphin Cove came out with earnings May 16. So that's their Q1, ending March 2023. All in all, a good number, good earnings report. So of course, I'm just go back a little bit. You would see where in June 2020, the company had significant losses, about 1 million US, right? So this was because of COVID, right? Which really started to hurt them in that quarter. So, it got a little impact in the March 20 quarter, but then in June 2020, and they really got it, right? The company's basically recovered coming into June 2021, where the company recorded about 1.2 million US in profit. So they recovered there. And then now, fast forward a bit, we're looking at March 2023, where we're seeing 98% basically increase in profits to 1.6 million US, right? So that was a good number. So, a bunch of things drove that. One of the things, of course, is more guests coming in, about 21% higher than pre-pandemic. So that's if you go back now all the way to Q1 2019, so that's good for them, right? So if I can share my screen for a bit here, so we can see where the revenue is up for the company, and then we can see where the profits for the company is up significantly. from that. Moving on a bit here now, we can see where, looking at some of these major ratios, we can see where the current ratio for the company is improved, the quick ratio, the debt to equity. So basically looking at the company's ability to pay debt, the debt levels is fairly insignificant. So that's a very low ratio, which is good for the solvency of the company. And then you look at the financial leverage, which kind of backing up that, given how low it is, close to 1. You can see that, again, most of the company's operations is basically funded by equity, and not really much liabilities there. And a strong operating margin, so that's improved. Net profit margins up, ROEs up, and ROA. So basically, on all these metrics, they're basically firing. Now, when you look on the stocks performance, what you're seeing is up about almost 20% for the year. That's a big outperformance compared to the junior market, and you can see that when the earnings came out around here, and then you can see this the uptick. Well, I'm not sure if it's kind of covered up a bit, but you can see this uptick here. So you can see that there's a positive reaction to that news in the market, which you want to see. Now, you zoom in out a bit here, and you can see that the performance for the company has been strong January performance, and then strong May performance, off of the back of those results, really pushing it. And then moving on here now to look at the overall performance in another way, you can see where the stock is off the recent highs, closer to 30, but still up well off the lows, which is around, closer to $5 and change, and it's at 16. So these lows are, of course, during the pandemic period, and you have the sell-off here, low, and then you have this here. Now, again, this chart highlights one of the things that can really drive performance in stocks. So you can see, looking around this level, comparing it here, that's a big increase in a short space of time. So this is one of the things about stocks. But of course, on the flip side, you can see the big sell down here.
Right.
And that's why when I talk about stocks, I always want to advise persons about the risk and the reward trade-off. Okay, you can see this reward looks very nice, but you can see that this fall off does not look so nice. If you bought this thing close to 30 and now it's here, you're not so happy with it. You bought it here and you're here, you're very happy with it. So the thing is, again, just perspective, long-term view, try to understand your risk tolerance, because what you don't want is that when it's up here, you panic sell and and then, or you buy into the hype up here and then it sells off. So you just want to just understand your risk tolerance and understand what you're getting into. So again, it's all good and well when you get those big gains, but you just have to understand the grind.
Before you move on, Leo, is that fall about consistent with what we've seen for the market in general between 2022, 23?
Yeah, I mean, it that would be some of it. That would be some of it. That would be in these numbers. Because what you really saw coming, and most of the sell-off kind of occurred in starting like in August 2019. The market was kind of flattening out then, but then of course with the pandemic you had a sell-off. But some companies have actually recently have hit highs, as in like all-time highs. So that's the reason why I wouldn't say all of it is due to that, but in general there is some what I call it now, repricing in the market. So with the interest rates going up, it reprices how persons look on value. So for example, you are looking at the broader market, right? When interest rates are very low, you could have gotten that regular multiples in the market was in excess of 20 odd times. If you look on the average stock, how many? No, it's much lower. So now we're looking at some 16 times earnings, some 15 times earnings. And sometimes you'll see this decline in terms of pricing despite better performance. Meaning a company might be making, for argument's sake, 20 times or 30% more in profit, but yet the multiple people are willing to pay is less. So, back in the day, they paid 20 times, now they're willing to pay probably like 15 times. And that's just a function of interest rates. And you can look at it from multiple ways. You can look at it in terms of opportunity cost. You can understand interest rates go up. Person say, hey, I'm cool with taking 10, I'm cool with taking 11%. I don't need to chase or take a risk in the stock market for it. And then, so because of that, you have a sell-off. You could look at it another way, which is, pricing mechanism using the CAPM model. Interest rates go up, that changes how the discount rate is applied to well, this might get a little bit technical, but it changes how you discount cash flows, essentially. So anyway you want to look at it, higher interest rates generally lead to lower valuations in the market, which will explain part of the sell-off. Because again, the earnings are spectacular, Matter of fact, the earnings beat pre-COVID, and based on what they did in Q1, if they maintain, granted it's yet to see if they can, but if they maintain this kind of performance, it could easily be on track for a record financial year. Again, it's early because it's Q1, but the Q1 was really strong. And all
that's
indications
reflecting what we're seeing in the tourism industry in general.
Yeah, so the
Tourism has
tourism
been doing
industry, they did,
exceptionally well.
yes, and they did some investments to build out some of their attractions and things during the downtime, so that kind of put them now in a better position. Not during the last 12 months. So that put them in a better position now in order to capitalize on it. So there's a lot of things going right for them. Yeah, so that's it. That's basically it.
All right, good. So let me see if I have any comments on that. No, I don't. All right, so Keisha, let's move over to you in the United States, where you're looking at the S&P 500, and somebody has a question for you, but we'll ask that later as well. S&P 500 has jumped nearly 1%. This was last week, Thursday.
It's back down today.
It's back down. All right, tell us what's going on. Just give us the update.
All right, so I guess the volatility, the up downs, the swings are really due to the debate going on right now about the U.S. debt ceiling. So as it currently stands with the U.S., there's a limit to how much the country can borrow. That limit was first implemented back in 1917, and over the years, it's been slowly increasing. The thing is that each time the U.S. government comes really close to hitting that debt ceiling, we have this back and forth, this malaise period between the Democrats and the Republicans, because the Democrats believe that, debt is necessary to be able to pay for the social good, while the Republicans believe, well, debt it's evil and the country is being run very recklessly because there's so much debt going around. So each time there's that back and forth between, do we raise the ceiling again, or does the government start missing payments? We're talking about paying government employees, pensioners, because if the debt ceiling is hit, the US government cannot make those payments. So we're coming up to a deadline pretty soon, June 1st. And that's why we're seeing the volatility in the market. Based on where the discussion is going and the negotiations are going, it's creating a lot of swings. So that relates to LeVar's question as well. What happened today? Well, we had discussions ongoing today around the debt ceiling that didn't really go too well. So because of that now, some amount of panic, persons start dumping stocks a little bit, because the thinking is, well, if the US breaches this debt limit, what does that mean? If the US government can't pay its bills, that's massive, right? And so that's what we're seeing now, creating that volatility. All in all, though, what we'll likely see is an extension, because we've been here before many a time. So we'll likely just see an extension in the discussions going into June, because into June, we're going to have quarterly tax payments coming in. So at that time now, we could see, okay, the government will be able to make those June payments to pensioners and to pay the employees.
So is the U.S. market more volatile than Jamaica's market, would you say?
I would say this year, not so much. Last year, 2022, for sure, the U.S. was swinging all over the place. This year, it's really the Jamaican market, from what I've seen, that's been really underperforming. It's down a lot year to date, as Leo was mentioning, right? So, but still, there are nuggets in everything, right? So the broad market on a whole, things may be happening, but it's always possible to find, that one or two little gem inside everything.
So Leo gave us one of them tonight, Dolphin Cove. What was the thing? What happened with the Pentagon? So that's what LeVar was asking.
Yeah, so it's discussions at the government level
regarding the Pentagon news. What's the Pentagon news?
So it's Biden speaking with the leader of the opposition around the debt ceiling. They're having negotiations around that because we need that limit raised again. It's right now 31.4 trillion US dollars. That needs to be increased so that the US government can make their payments in June.
Okay, Pablo says the debt Don't call her lady, Pablo. It's not, I don't like how you started it. The debt ceiling debate has little impact on the stock market. It's inflation and interest rates, as well as the prospect of a recession. So, what do you think
So
about
it is weighing on the stock market. It is, Pablo. It is. Inflation and interest rates too are playing some impact. The thing, however, is that we're having this, everything culminating together, and it's creating more volatility. So yes, inflation was always there. Higher interest rates was always there. But when you add on now discussions around the U.S. breaching the debt ceiling, that now adds to the volatility, because back in 2011, which was the last time we were this close to the debt ceiling not being raised, the U.S. credit, their overall debt level was downgraded because there was a lot of discussions about, all right, is the U.S. really going to again raise their debt ceiling? So it does add to the volatility. It was already rocky. It's now even more, right? So that's what we're seeing.
All right, and then last comment comes from Marl, who says the U.S. is broke. No need to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. So because they keep going in debt, the government needs debt, and like most countries, debt is just the way. Most countries and persons, debt has become the new norm, right? Which is a whole entire episode.
Having debt doesn't mean you're broke, though.
Broke meaning we can't pay the bills because of this limit. There's no cash available. The country has to issue additional debt to be able to make these payments. There's no cash ready. So in that sense, yes, broke.
I tell you who ain't broke. Jermaine, who's saying good morning from China. China has entered the chat.
Yeah, not broke over there for sure.
Morning, Jermaine. All right, and then we have Sheldon saying, will the U.S. ever be broke?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, any government really can keep printing, but because of this debt limit.
Which is a whole other conversation, because that's what they did during the pandemic, which led to higher inflation, which, okay, let's not go down that rabbit hole tonight, because we'll be here all night talking about that. But thanks for the updates, Keisha. Thank you so much, Leo.
All right.
Take another break, and I'll come back with final comments, because the chat is lit tonight. Y'all have a lot to say, and I'm going to try to say as much of it as possible. Be right back. Oh, hold on. Don't go yet.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analyst, was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart, and Profit Jumpstarter.
All right, so let me bring Keisha back on, because Keisha has something that she needs to tell us about. Keisha, you have some big news. You have a big conference coming up, right?
Right, yes.
Real estate conference.
Right, yes.
Tell the people, talk to us.
Yeah, big news. Happening August 19 at the AC Hotel. We're going to be flying in the experts from overseas. We'll also be having some local experts, wink, 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 at our real estate conference. It's Build Wealth with Real Estate Conference. Tickets are now on sale. It's going to be an amazing event. We're bringing all of the heavy hitters in the room when it comes to real estate investing. So for persons here who, I think it went. Oh, all right. So for persons here who are interested in learning about real estate investing and using that as your wealth creation tool, you have to be in the room, as I say, you have to be. Tickets are on sale. It's at profitjumpstarter.com/conference. So profitjumpstarter.com/conference. And grab your tickets. They are $199, so extremely low for all of the knowledge and all of the connections you're going to be making. We're bringing the bankers, the developers, the money people, the investors, all in one room to have a big discussion around how do we use real estate to create wealth. It's going to be very exciting.
Love it. It's a one-day conference coming on a Saturday. Excellent value. I'm looking forward to it. And real estate, that's where money people are putting their money right now.
That's where the money is.
As you said, the stock market is underperforming, so a lot of people are shifting their money to real estate.
Right. It's $199 US, all-day conference, meals provided, books provided, curriculum, networks, everything's going to be there. So you just have to be in the room to learn, be where the money is.
Awesome. Well, I will see you there for sure. You know I'm
Yes.
going to be there.
I
Sitting front
know.
and center. I would not miss it. I need to put it in my calendar. No. All right. Kevin, she said it a few times. Cost a ticket $199 US. So go to her
Yes.
website and book your ticket one time before it sells out because it's going to be a hot
Yes.
ticket. Telling
Yeah,
you
it's
no.
limited tickets because we're keeping it intimate for everyone to be able to get the insights, make the connections, right?
Good
Yeah.
stuff. All right. Thank you, Keisha.
All right.
Okay, let's get back to some of these comments because, boy, people are not happy with what has been going on. Okay, back to it. Let's see. I need to take off some of these comments that we already mentioned. Let me see. All right. Lily says, tell the politicians to open ackee, pimento, ginger, and roots factories. The country needs manufacturing to grow, not borrowing. I have mixed feelings about this. One, because not politicians who should be opening factories. It's people, it's entrepreneurs, it's business people who should be opening factories. But what the politicians do or should do is facilitate that to happen. So I know that there is FCJ Factories Corporation in Jamaica that rents space, and we had a show on Money Moves JA probably a couple months ago talking about how they're expanding and they are looking for businesses to rent space in this expanded facility that they're having. So yeah, but the greater point is that indeed we need manufacturing in order to grow. We need to export more in order to grow. Joey says, "Me know Andrew can't get back my vote. Rather no vote." Oh boy, Mirak says, we don't boot our politicians every 5 years. We rotate then with the next one because we only have two options. So two-party system, PMP, JLP. Cheesy Gully side. Haven't heard from you in a minute, Cheesy. You're back. Cheesy says, public sector workers can hardly afford a house. And when people leave you here, say they must sell out. Yet some of us can get 200%. Come on, man. Pay the teacher, police, and nurse them better. Pablo says they're a parasitic den of thieves. Orville says cross, hungry, miserable. And then Black Sheep. So Black Sheep was the one earlier asking about when is the protest. And I said, well, there was a protest last week, Friday. Well, he says, overall, Jamaican people are the most laid back people. We only argue in private and oppose in quiet. But when it's time to stand up, we start overthinking till our knees get crippled. So basically saying, yeah, protest was, not what he probably expected. Did you participate, Black Sheep? If you're in Jamaica, organize your own protest to your standards as to what you think it should be. Kevin says, until there's something to fear, they'll be held accountable every time there is even a slight discrepancy, then nothing would change. And then Shelly-Ann says, if the last raise didn't motivate them to do their jobs, neither will this raise. The tricksters are playing in your faces. All right. Well, great show tonight, guys. I appreciate your input as usual. And I want to invite you once again to join me over in the Money Mission community where we can have more conversations like this face to face. Y'all get to talk to me personally about what I think about this kind of stuff. Because I only give, I give my filtered point of view on this public forum. But in our private forum, I can tell you what I really think, you see? So go to Money Mission. How the link go again? moneymission.mn.co. The link is in the description of this video. And you can join me there in our community, our membership community. You can take our polls. You can talk to me. I go live. Right now I'm doing every Monday and Thursday. But I'm actually going to be live tomorrow, not Thursday. This week specifically. So this week I'm going to be live tomorrow at 8 o'clock inside the community. And you can ask me anything as well. Anything that if you've ever wanted to pick my brain, ask my advice, ask my opinion on something, then inside the community is the place to do it. So we have our lives every Monday. And this week we'll also be live. I'll also be live on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So see you tomorrow inside the Money Mission community. You also, I mentioned it last week, have an opportunity to become a Money Mission ambassador and earn up to $108 for each person you refer to the community who joins. So right now in the chat, you guys can refer each other and collect the commission when each other joins. You know, I think that that makes perfect sense. If you know that you are already a part of Team KRM, you're on the show every week, you are perfect people to be a part of the community. And then you know, you already know each other, get that commission and get that money when your friend joins the community. So see you over there tomorrow night, guys. And of course, let's get this money.
Let's get this money.